Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I have the one and only legend, the path of the berserker, the president of blockchain, the legend himself, the one who calls himself the bald man of Gala. Maybe he doesn't call it, but I do it. Bitbender Brink. And let me tell you, you look a lot better with the bald head, so you've kind of killed it here. We're going to be talking base on Gala V2. It's the thing everybody's been asking in the comments. It's the thing that literally everybody's looking forward to hear. We've got to have some reasoning. We've got to understand what's going on here, and this is why we've got Bitbender here for you today. Sal, how you doing, buddy?
With you today, man. I'm doing okay. I'm so happy that it's Friday.
Are you?
So happy that it's. I'm hoping you're planning on putting this out today, because otherwise it's gonna be super awkward if it comes out like tomorrow and it's not Friday anymore. I'm gonna look like a crazy person. But yeah, I'm so happy it's Friday. It's been a week, man.
Yeah, and at Gala, do you guys work like a normal company? You just do 9 to 5 or like odd off hours?
What kind of stupid question is that? Of course we don't work like a normal company. We have 400 people all over the world. I was just talking to Buck about this morning, and she said it's super frustrating because for the last 2.5 years since she started here, she hasn't had a Friday night because she's in the UK, so she's like 8 hours ahead of us here on the West Coast, and there are people who still put meetings on her calendar at 10 or 11 p.m. on a Friday night, which means that you just don't get a Friday night anymore. You're spending it working. I understand. This is life. So no, it's pretty much 24/7, 7 days a week, except for occasionally when you leave the phone in your office and go outside for half an hour or something like that. It's good times.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was talking to a couple of other people in Gala about that, and they were like, sometimes I don't even play Web3 games after my shift at Gala. It's like I have to play a Web2 game to try to disassociate myself with the entire thing. Because you're working all day grinding it out. And for me, it's like it's a lot similar. Everybody in Web3 is the same. We're all trying to do something off of not a lot of resources. So it's just like grinding it out day in and day out to make something possible, which I think is cute. Like, I think it's fun. I think it's motivating. It's passion. Everybody's in the same sphere, right? It's not like there's that one guy that's just like, I don't really care. Like we already kind of made it. Gala, I mean, they're doing well. Like you guys are doing well, but you're not doing that well. Yeah. You're not doing it well to the point where it's like, whatever, dude, I don't really care anymore. You still really care about what you're doing, which is exactly what we're looking for in a company.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a big thing for me, in regards to Gala is like whenever you have a question or a suggestion or a concern, you just spam them and they'll respond eventually, right? So that's always something great. Okay, so in regards to Gala V2, we saw Coinbase.
Gala V2.
Yes, Gala V2.
I'm super ready for Monday to come, so I don't have to answer Gala V2 questions anymore.
You're almost there.
It's always the same, like 6 questions. Plus will random ass exchange support Gala V2. It's good times. So go ahead, hit me, man.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to do it, right? So okay, Coinbase, what happened there? Why are they saying this is an airdrop?
Well, I don't know that that's what they're saying. To be very clear, they haven't given any actual reason why they're not supporting Gala V2. When I said the thing about the airdrop, I said in my tweet, this is entirely supposition on my part. I do not know that is necessarily the case. But they didn't support Flare or Songbird, and it is a new token contract. So how they want to look at that, but no, Coinbase does what Coinbase does. It's okay. We understand there are business reasons for doing things. And I think that in the long run, they'll probably come back around, fingers crossed, on that one. But yeah, they're still a great company. They still do great stuff. And, I've been recommending, I just recommended that people use the Coinbase wallet. If you're a Coinbase user and you want to stick within Coinbase, you can use the Coinbase wallet instead of just keeping it on Coinbase custodial.
Yeah, so. I think it's a bit ridiculous that a centralized exchange that's heavily regulated has a decentralized wallet.
I'm not going to comment on that, but yeah.
A little bit ridiculous, but yeah,
but at the same time, that shouldn't be an issue. It shouldn't be an issue. They have the same goal that all of us, and by they I mean Coinbase, the same goal that all of us have in the space, which is to push Centralization and to push Web3 and to push, player ownership of assets and financial freedom forward as far as possible. So in that sense, I get it. It's frustrating sometimes in the space when you have to deal with the sort of unclear and murkiness of regulatory agencies and things like that. But I think we're all on the same team here.
Absolutely. We love Coinbase over here. We would love a relisting of Gala Games as a V2 token when that comes out on Coinbase. That'd be wonderful. Okay, let's touch base on old Gala because I think people need some context on
Yeah.
why the hell we're doing this in the first place. So let's go before this Gala even existed, because I remember there was this original Gala, the ERC, what was it, 1155 Gala. What was going on in Gala back then, and then what happened the first upgrade?
So long story short, the ERC 1155, that standard, okay, allows for a few different things. It allows for you to essentially have transactions that include multiple tokens within a single transaction. So you could, in one transaction, send, 1,000 Gala, 5 parts, for this, whatever it is that you're doing. I mean, back then we were looking at it from a perspective of crypto crafting and essentially using a bunch of parts to create bots for Townstar. And anyone who's from the early days in Gala, like if you go look at their inventory and you see their Townstar items, sometimes they'll have hundreds of thousands of Townstar NFTs. Because those Townstar NFTs are all like bot parts. Like I've got 15,000 screws that can be used eventually to make some sort of bot, right? So, the idea is that you would have this the ability to do crypto crafting where you would create something, and you might need to send all of these different things in one transaction. And Gala was considered part of that. So, the original Gala token was a token on that contract, the same contract that the Townstar NFTs are on, that was an ERC 1155. Now, very quickly, it was decided that was suboptimal. It doesn't work well. Nobody supported ERC 1155 for a token standard, and still nobody does. So it was necessary at that point in time to say, okay, well, if because people definitely wanted to see it listed somewhere, if that was going to happen, then there needed to be an ERC20. And so we built the ERC20. The problem with the ERC20 is, this was 3 years ago. And anyone who has ever done anything in tech knows that over the course of a couple of years, milestones and goalposts will move, technical requirements will change, new innovations will come out, stuff like that. And so it became necessary then, in the last couple years to make an upgrade, make some changes, and in this upgrade, make it so we don't ever have to do this again because it's a nightmare. And so that's where Gala V2 comes in.
That's a wonderful explanation on it all. Making sure that you never have to make changes again. I had this conversation with a couple of crypto gaming companies back in the day where they were renouncing their contracts and they were just throwing it all in the wind. I feel like Web3 gaming, I don't know if you have the same sentiment, but it needs some sort of centralization at first, like a concrete level of centralization. And then slowly over time, you kind of break it apart into a decentralized
you have to like definitely full decentralization has always been and always will be the long-term goal until we get there. But at a certain point in time, if you don't have some nexus of control, you can't actually get anything done. I would put money on the fact that if you go back and you look at every single one of those projects that renounced their contract, typically after doing an ICO, mind you. So they would do an ICO, collect a bunch of money, and then renounce their contracts and give it to the community. They've done absolutely dick in the last several years because, it just all sort of died. And so nobody wants that. So we continue to, work together to push this all forward.
You know what they say in DeFi? In DeFi, I run a validator node. And the one thing that I've gained in terms of consciousness, a heightened level of this, is
Mhm.
decentralization is very powerful for one reason, because nobody can ever agree on something. Like, we all collectively cannot agree together, so nothing will ever
Right.
change. And so if you
Right.
do the same thing for games, you're just going to run into that roadblock and absolutely nothing will happen. So
Well,
I guess
and this
this,
this
yeah.
is this is why we never, ever use governance votes on game decisions, because there are reasons that game designers make games. They're the ones who know how to make good games, and if we don't let them make good games, then what we're going to end up with is a bunch of really, really crappy games. And it's kind of like a too many cooks in the kitchen sort of thing, which for some governance things, it's like, okay, maybe you have this, what's the word? Competitive environment for ideas, and maybe that's a good thing. But a lot of times what you end up with is a not competitive environment where nothing good happens and you just have a bunch of random crap occurring, and nobody wants that. And so this is why, that sort of stuff never goes to governance votes. I mean, all you have to do is just go to Reddit, right? Go read one thread in Reddit for any video game to see the range of opinions and realize that we can't let these people decide things in games. It's just not going to work. Because the only thing that they ever agree on is that whoever the game designers are terrible, the game is broken, and they're never going to play it ever again because they nerfed the shotgun.
And then
Oh
they
my
get on
God.
tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah, I had that opinion for a while, especially like on Gala, and then I started like DMing Chair Bandit. He's like the Spider Tank's project manager for Gala, and he just, for some reason, he just knows everything I'm talking about. So I mean, for me at that point, it's like
he
they
does.
know, they have a timeline for these things, they're working on them, they have probably quality of life things they want to work on first. They'll fix that,
Mm-hmm.
then they'll work on whatever small things I'm asking for. It's just like waiting for those things to come true. And there are only so many people. Sure, Gala has 400 people, but I mean, some of these AAA gaming companies have thousands of people. So it makes sense
Yeah.
why they're working a little bit faster than Gala. But even then, I would like to just shift this a little bit. We'll go back to Gyri. I will get you there. But
Okay.
I want to touch base on Last Expedition. I want to touch base on Champions Arena. I want to touch base
Sure.
on Spider Tanks. So, okay, I guess a good question here would be like, so I saw the Nexus bundle sales on Champions Arena, and it reminded me a ton of Spider Tanks nodes. For me, like, Spider Tank nodes, they sucked when they started. But I feel like nowadays with May Mayhem, it's starting to make sense why they were priced at where they were priced at. And it was kind of like the situation where we had Ancient Tanks. They were like, what, $40,000, $50,000 base. I looked at Champions Arena. They're like maybe 1.3 thousand for like a Founders Nexus bundle, right?
Right.
Is the idea to get every single Gala game with like one of these big bundles that give you a bunch of like drops, kind of like Last Expedition nodes, where you keep getting these ancient Ravagers, ancient Porcupines?
I wouldn't go so far as to say like that's the quote unquote plan. It just happens to be a model that works particularly well
Yeah.
for people. Because the idea is in any game, your biggest cost at the end of the day is user acquisition. Okay. So from when you operate a game, the costs of servers are one thing, cost of development are another thing. But then getting people into the game itself is a huge cost. And getting people into the game so that they come into the game and stay in the game is a whole other thing. And so a lot of the time, what we try to do with these games is come up with a way that we can incentivize users, okay, to bring other people in, okay, so that the users become the vector for growth rather than us just throwing money at like Google ads, right? And in the case of, Spider Tanks, this Nexus and all of these things, the idea there is that, look, I can take my Nexus, I can load it up with heroes, and I can let people come and use them. And then if there's an earning component there, then great. Then I get a part of that too, because they're using my thing. And everybody wins. The problem is that we saw a lot of not a lot, but some pushback on the original pricing of the Nexus, is that people have a tendency to look at things only from the perspective of like right now. If it's not half an inch in front of their noses, they don't really think to that point in time. And so what we're trying to do is to give a better view of what's coming, what can be done with these things so that people understand the value, while also giving them the ability to incentivize their friends to essentially come and join.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's been such a weird conundrum because I used to play a ton of Axie Infinity. I actually spoke to Jiho at Consensus. That was very interesting. But I learned a little bit as to why they were doing what they were doing. I feel like a lot of the games on Gala, like for example, the Nexus bundle, you rent things out to someone. It feels like there's like a pseudo scholarship model. And a lot of people are freaking out, right? They're like, oh God, is this the next Axie? Is this the next thing that blows up and instantly dies? What is Gala doing in these games? Because you guys do have control of the economy, right? Or is that the game publisher?
Usually we work together on it.
Yeah.
Put it together. Put it that
Yeah.
way.
So what are you guys doing
so
to just stop this, right? No death
Okay,
spiral.
so for starters, I'm not gonna talk shit about Axie.
Okay. You're very yellow.
I'm picking my words carefully here. Axie was, and this isn't criticism, it's simply a reality. We had the same problem with Townstar. Axie was not ready for the level of attention that it received, because their entire model was based on perform one action, get some other thing. Okay. And so you perform an action, you compete, you get your SLP or you get your whatever. And that was a flat sort of rate, right? Originally, you would play and you'd get, what was it, like 20 SLP a match or something like that?
It was a lot, yeah.
Right. And, so that's cool. But the problem is then COVID happened, okay? And suddenly you have lots and lots of people with absolutely nothing to do. And like all of the Philippines started playing Axie, right? And so overnight you had millions of users and the economy simply wasn't built for things at that emission rate. Okay, so and then we had, again, the same exact problem with Townstar, where it was designed in a certain way where there was a sort of a flat emission based on an action, and then if people started doing that action a whole bunch, then the emission was super high, and that doesn't work. That's the number one problem. Now, in the case of Townstar and in the case of Axie, if they had done what we have done now with Spider Tanks, we wouldn't have this issue, because with Spider Tanks, the more people that you have playing, the more people you have potentially earning, it doesn't increase the daily emission, okay? Unless people are using and burning so much silk that it naturally goes up, at which point in time the emission is smaller, but the value may potentially be higher because the demand is so high, and so the idea is that it balances itself out. So every day in Spider Tanks, there's a soft cap of 50 million silk. And every day, 0.25% of whatever has not yet been minted is added to the mint pool, essentially, for distribution. Okay, so it's because it's 0.25% of whatever's left. As the supply increases, the amount that is emitted decreases, right? And so it has this very nice curve that just kind of locks it in and keeps things from running completely wild, which I think is very helpful.
I think a good way of just simplifying that is if there's a certain amount of silk in the ecosystem, it just becomes deflationary over time, how much you're receiving, right? Which I think is really cool, right? And Axie was the exact opposite. It was a very stable rate. And I agree. Like when I talked to Jiho, he was like, we just weren't ready. There were just so many people that randomly got into our ecosystem. And I guess that in some way is a good problem to have. But obviously, right, there are ramifications when you're not ready for it.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a ton of sense. And like, I imagine you have something similar planned for Champions Arena with those Nexus bundles. I imagine with Spider Tanks, like, it's not just that, by the way. I know that there's an honor system as well. A lot of people really don't really understand exactly what the honor system is in Spider Tanks. But TLDR, they're just promoting people not to throw silk into the open markets. There's so many different sinks in spider tanks so that you don't have to directly put silk on an exchange, right? They're like tank parts. They are tanks themselves. There are these special props. There's a bunch of different things that they're releasing, which is
So
really
many
cool.
things going on.
Yeah. So many things going on. And it reminds me a lot of a game that I played religiously for a very long time called League of Legends. Because League of Legends, when they first started, they're doing literally the same exact model. I don't know if Bandit just got the League of Legends model and just slapped it onto spider tanks, but it feels like they're grabbing a new champion, or in this part, it's like, you know, the repair gun, the cleric, all these different ones, and they're releasing them every 3 weeks or something like that. It creates stable emissions, right? People burning a ton of silk, because on the marketplace, you burn silk. I think it's a wonderful idea, and having a stable rate is extremely important for sustainability, because at the end of the day, you know, people throwing in a bunch of money into things, it's important to keep in mind them, but it's also important to keep in mind that the game has to live, right? So that's something very important, because I made a ton of money off Axie, but when I left, the people after me did not have a lot of fun. Okay, great. So this is good. I like this conversation. Yeah. So let's go back to Gyri. Now I'll give you the juicy one.
Okay,
what's going on there? So for me, I look at Gyri. I use it every single day. I play a ton of spider tanks. Tell me, when is Gyri becoming the Gala blockchain officially? Like, when are we changing the name? When are we done with this thing? What are we planning to do with this thing?
Well, hopefully we can get some of this done here pretty soon, because as we move beyond this Gala V2 thing, which has been a somewhat of a blocker, then we can begin looking into some of these other things, like announcing the name and whatnot. It is again, you use it already. It's a blockchain that you use. You can look at the Explorer at any point in time you want and see your spider tanks matches roll across and things like that. So this is going to be something that you're going to see a lot more of pretty soon.
Okay, and for the people freaking out about Gala's like Gyri blockchain being Ethereum based, are they right? Like, are we freaking out about scalability, or do you have something planned specifically for gas fees?
It's not Ethereum based.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let the people know. I get that question very often.
Not EVM. No, it is not EVM, which is kind of it's a good thing, but it adds complexity when interacting with other EVM partners out there, because we do have you know, things moving forward in a few different ways with other L2s and whatnot, and they're like, oh, EVM, and we're like, no, and it becomes this whole point of conversation. So yeah, we can scale horizontally as broadly as we need to. We're not limited by Ethereum. We're not timed by Ethereum. You know, it's very much not Ethereum.
Good. And how would you compare Gyri to other chains? Like, how does this function, right?
So it's a modified version of Hyperledger Fabric that integrates our node ecosystem and how that works. So essentially, it rather than working in terms of having, you know, a block that gets a bunch of stuff filled in it, and then it gets confirmed and broadcast across the ecosystem. What you have transactions that move across various channels. We have like an asset channel, Spider Tanks channel, music channel, whatever. You know, any number of channels can be deployed that track specific transactions in relation to that. You can almost think of these as like side chains or even their own blockchain. And what the nodes will do in the long run is help order those transactions. So you can have a bunch of simultaneous concurrent things going on. And then what the nodes do is they put those transactions in line and then can read a state from the chain.
That's so interesting. So it's kind of like having a validator where you maybe have a spider tank node and they would validate a spider tank transaction in that specific block.
Yeah. It could work like that, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, right? And that's why there's so many nodes out there, to make sure that things are properly...
Lots of different things
exactly,
going on.
A lot of different things going on. I was looking at the TPS. I think it was, Benefactor that posted it. It was like 10 TPS or something. Is it still around that range? Because I know
it's way higher than that. It's way
good.
Higher than that. It's the question there is that was transactions being issued right now on the chain. So just within our ecosystem, people playing spider tanks and doing things like that, that's what it's doing. As opposed to not the theoretical max. I'm sure we could run that up very high if we
Yeah.
needed to.
I mean, I cover Hedera, and these things go 100,000 TPS. Very
Well, yeah, but
spicy.
but but well, okay, hold on. But I'm just gonna put a pin in that for a second.
Okay.
So that 100,000 TPS, what you have to ask is what's in those transactions? What's your payload? Are you just making transactions so that you can have a really big transaction number? So do you have a whole bunch of transactions that have essentially a zero in them, and you're just pushing a bunch of transactions out? Because that's how a lot of these things work, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that there's a lot of nuance when we talk about transactions per second.
Yeah, and the average person is making multiple transactions anyway with a million different MEV bots and all these different things. So
Exactly.
yeah, it makes sense. It makes 100% sense. Okay, so question I think I didn't see on stashes. This very important, very important. Did he
Yeah.
ask about hardware wallets?
No, he did not.
Okay, beautiful. If I throw all of my Gala into my Coinbase wallet, it's a ledger. Do I need to do anything to get this upgrade?
No, you'll receive the upgrade. Not a
Beautiful,
problem.
beautiful. All right, ladies and gentlemen, don't tell me I didn't ask it. That was like literally, I think that was like the number two
Yeah, no, you
question.
have it in your ledger. Have it in your browser. Let me know what you guys think about the idea of having a custom Gala branded ledger. That's a thing that
I would
we're,
cop.
yeah, I think a lot of people would.
Okay, so yeah, Trezor Ledger, it don't matter what it is, you're gonna be perfectly fine. I mean, random exchanges, like you said, you've got Binance, you've got all these different centralized exchanges saying that they're announcing it. I would say, of course, NFA, but I would probably put my tokens somewhere decentralized just to make sure 150 million% that you get your tokens, and you don't have to freak out about that stuff. Great that we're seeing a bunch of these centralized exchanges coming out. The woes are a little bit lower. You can begin to focus on different things, hopefully
Yeah.
after the 15th.
What I'll say is this: is that of all of the exchanges we've talked to, the only exchange that has said no, okay, is Coinbase. Now, I will say that not every exchange that we have messaged, we've messaged them, submitted support tickets, sent them emails. Not every exchange has replied back to us. There are some, mostly very small exchanges that haven't. But what I'm considering, I'm talking to legal about whether or not we can do this. I'm considering publishing a list of exchanges that we haven't heard back from, so people are aware. But again, they're mostly very small exchanges. So
Yeah, I mean that's most of the time just because they haven't even heard about it. They're just like doing their own little thing in their own little world, right?
yeah, I mean, I don't want them to get wrecked either because they didn't, do whatever. But the nice thing is that, because of the way we're doing this, they will get the V2 tokens, and then just after the fact, they may have to go, give those to their users. So
Distribute it, yeah. It makes sense, yeah. And so, when we're talking about, Gala moving forward after V2, because I think we got all the V2 questions, right? Do you think I missed any? I think we did pretty good on that one.
none of them were particularly new. I've answered these
Yeah, it's
a
kind of the
lot of
same thing.
times over the last week.
All right, let me try to give the viewers something spicy. Okay, so I remember that at some point you guys were talking about something in the along the lines of like 500 million of these gems and Gala being burnt or something like that. People have been kind of asking what happened since then. Is this whole roadmap
Well,
thing still happening?
well, okay. For starters, we've basically hit everything on that roadmap, minus a couple things. Okay, so if you actually go back and page by page, there's a couple things that we haven't hit, but that's mostly because things have been delayed due to the V2 and Geary stuff. But everything else has pretty much been hit. The gems thing. Now you will recall that one of the reasons that we're doing V2 is because burns are not appropriately tracked on V1. So we have to do V2 before it makes sense to do any substantial burns. So I cannot give any statements about the hows or wins or whatnots, but suffice to say, these things are still in consideration.
Ah, that's good to know. Yeah, we need the V2 upgrade to be able to do that. All right, that's good to know. Yeah, because I think a lot of people were asking about like gems, and then they were asking about some of these other ecosystem things like beams, right? And exchanging them for
That
US
beams,
dollars.
I saw a bunch of people asking questions about beams and music. I've got no idea. I am not the person to ask about any of that. So
You're the
if
game
you
guy.
had, the game and blockchain and ecosystem, but I do not know anything about beams.
Okay, that's good to know. I think another good question is, founders nodes. I believe right now there's a proposal out
Mhm.
there to make them into NFTs. That goes into what
That already passed.
already passed.
So yeah.
Okay, so that's happening for sure. Is the
Yep.
same going to happen for all of the other nodes in the Gala ecosystem, or is it just founders nodes?
Um, it will likely happen for others as well, but no set timeline.
Okay, fair, yeah. And are we going to be doing more node sales at some point? Because I know Spider Tanks, I mean, they stopped. That was it for them. Are we going to do something like founders nodes where it just keeps recurring the sale over and over and over, or is it like over?
Possible.
Yeah, because I feel like at some point you're going to need to continue scaling, right? In case you get a bunch of users, and it would make a lot of sense to get more nodes. So in terms of a physical presence, right? I didn't see Gala at Consensus, but I did see Gala Music, I believe, at NFT NYC. What
Yes.
events is Gala going to be heading to this year?
What events are Gala? I honestly don't know, man. I just had a new kid a couple months ago. You could
Oh,
possibly hear it screaming in the background. So I'm trying to stay home as much as possible right now because with a toddler and an infant, me leaving does not earn me extra credit points with my wife.
fair.
So yeah, but there are definitely going to be some other events that we go to later in the year. I'll probably be out and going to more stuff. There were some events I wanted to go to, but just we weren't able to work it into the schedule. That's one of the interesting things about us going to events. When we go to events, we really make it pop. Like we always want to have an amazing presence at the event. We want it to look good. We want it to feel good. We want it to be, we want it to be a lot, right? And the problem with that is that if you do that at the wrong time, like if we're in a down market and we show up with, a like $1 million booth that's 2 stories tall, it is excessive looking, people don't like that. But at the same time, if we just show up and get a 10 by 10 booth with like some stickers on it and a shitty tablecloth, people don't like that either. So it's one of those things that we look at it from a perspective of go big or go home. Because we're already talking to everybody, and it's as much as I hate to say this, everyone who goes to these events knows that this is the case. Same 1,000 people that you run into at every single one of these freaking events.
It's true. Yeah.
It's the same people. It's like okay, who are we going to see? Now, we will do stuff like we always participate in Binance Blockchain Week. There's definitely some stuff that we do as a show of support for some of our exchange partners, but we're not, just like going to every random crypto event just doesn't make sense. It's kind of a waste of time, to be honest.
Yeah, that's where my head's at. I mean, I'm going to 3XP. I'm going to Rare Evo. I think those events are going to be a lot of fun. But overall, I mean, I feel like this year, for example, if I went to Bitcoin Miami, it's like I'm kind of meeting the same people I already met before. So
You are, and that's okay. Not that there's anything wrong with meeting them, but it's like, you're at the hotel bar grabbing drinks with the same people you grabbed drinks with a month previous in some other city in some other continent.
You're just partying with them. That's all you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just like, why don't we all just get a bus and we'll just drive from event to event, and it'll be like some terrible, like almost famous tour bus thing forever. It's awful.
You just turn it into The Hangover. It's gonna be fun, blockchain based. Okay, cool. So I guess the last question we'll do will be, so I heard Grit got released. That thing's on the Epic Games Store, but
it's on the Epic Games Store. Yeah,
it's not on the Gala Games Store though. Why?
I don't know.
You still don't know?
That's not a me question.
Yeah, because I was a little confused. I was like, it's not on Gala Games.
I think it has something to do with the fact that the login stack for it requires Epic.
Okay.
And I'm not entirely positive there though, but yeah. So
fair,
it's
fair.
Yeah.
All right.
Have you played? What'd you think?
Okay. I'm gonna be 100% honest with everybody
Go for it.
here. I think it's a little clunky, right? Like I think like when
Okay.
you're aiming in, gun goes straight up, a little bit weird. When you're aiming to at a person, you shoot at them, the drop's a little odd. It's not like most games.
Okay.
It's like you have to learn a totally different language to play this game. It's not a traditional
Interesting.
FPS. And the recoil feels a little bit odd. Like your gun doesn't really go back. It just, it moves up on the crosshair. So to me, it felt like the game's still in beta, right? But I guess I could see, right, the appeal if it's on like on mobile or something like that, which I don't think they're working on yet. But if that were to happen, it would make sense.
I've heard that comment from people as well. So I will pass that on to the team. Thank you.
Yeah, it makes sense. The one game I will say is sexy though is Last Expedition. I'll show that shit all day. It feels
like
good.
His background? Do you like his background?
Hell yeah, I've seen it.
Oh,
very
have you
homey.
seen his background?
Very homey. Yeah, you've showed it. Very homey background. Tell me about it.
This is I'm not even supposed to have this background. I had to threaten one of the artists to give it to me.
Reminds me of Halo.
But it's prettier than Halo. Like, look at those mushrooms, man. Just look at those mushrooms.
Is that going to be like the actual art in the world? Because I think I was playing and it was devoid of life.
Footage. This is engine footage. Yeah, no, this is my point, is that you've played in what is available for other people to play in is not what is available for us to play in. So this is like in-engine footage. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Lucky.
It is so cool. We were playing in one the other day where they have these gigantic ferns. And as you go through the ferns sway, but they're just so freaking huge. And so you can see stuff moving through them, but you can't necessarily see it because you're like got branches in your face and stuff.
Right.
It's pretty epic.
When's that getting released?
That I don't know what the release date is, but I know that there's some more play tests with new biomes and stuff coming up here pretty soon.
Gosh, I'm so excited for that. And damn, you open a can of worms every time you mention this stuff. Okay, so is there gonna be like another Gala game that gets released soon? Because I feel like I was hearing a couple of these games on the roadmap getting really close. Like Eternal Paradox, I feel like is practically released. That game looks like it's released, right? And it feels like there's
there's some that are really close. There's Eternal Paradox. There's Champions Arena, which if you haven't played Champions Arena, play it. It's freaking epic.
Reminds me of Summoner's War.
Yeah. It's a cool game though. But yeah, there's some games, and there's also titles that nobody knows about that are pretty close.
So you're just gonna release them?
Hints. I've dropped. Oh, not just gonna release them. There's big shit happening around them. You just don't know what they are yet.
All right. That's all I gotta hear. I think that's all the people want to hear too. To be honest, the people are very excited for Gala Games to be coming out, and
like that's the thing is what I love is, people always say that the bear market is a time for builders, and we have been building.
I could see it. Yes,
building and building and building, and yes, we have our critics who don't like that things have taken longer. They don't like some specific thing, or they got angry about one NFT that they bought or one part of the ecosystem that doesn't do the thing that they expected it to. But we've been building, and there's more coming. It's going to be epic.
Yeah, the entire ecosystem is a grand experiment that seems to be working. So that's great to hear.
And just wait.
Just wait, boys. Just wait, boys. All right, I think that's pretty much all I've got for you, Bitbender, today. I feel like we covered everything under the sun here, and I'm sure... I hope so. I hope I covered everything, because, like, I swear to God, people were like, okay, Classy, don't do the same thing as Stash. Do something a little bit pizzazzy, different. I'm like, I've been no-lifing Gala Games recently. I feel like I've got a little bit more insight as to what we could exactly talk about. I'm not even going to talk about Miranda's here. We'll just leave that for another time. But with that being said, it was a pleasure to have you. I think everybody's going to be really excited to see this. And we're going to get this popping on the YouTubes.
Go for it. Get it up on the YouTubes, man.